Hi, okay. My visible, okay, great. Hi. 1 second. We can't hear you.
I am really hoping this is streaming live on Facebook.
I think it is, yes. It says meeting is now live streaming live on Facebook. So yeah, it should be.
So, but I don't know. I have my iPad open and I don't see it. So anyway, let's just go on. It's 11:02. So welcome to the Movement Studios live space. And thank you so much for joining me to talk about children and movement, exercise, injuries, recovery, performance. So we are going to focus exclusively on kids between the ages of 3 to 12 and 15, say till 15. And I would also like to welcome the viewers, hopefully, who are watching this. If you're a young parent or the parent of teenagers, or if you're looking forward to have a kid, at some point have kids in your life, this is important viewing for you. I would also like to say that the series is called For the Children series, which was created keeping the needs of the children in the current scenario in mind, especially in the Indian context. So we're going to be talking to strength and conditioning coaches, to nutritionists, to dance teachers, especially a ballet teacher is going to be joining us later. And with Dr. Harini, we're going to do a couple of parts where we talk about dance. So to begin with, Dr. Harini, could you please just introduce yourself in like a few sentences?
Okay. Hi, and thank you for having me here. I mean, I've been I've been associated with you for quite some time, and it's been an amazing experience. So, I mean, I'm really excited about today's session. And about me, well, there's not much really. Just I'm a sports physician. I've done my master's in the UK, and I work a bit. I do a lot of freelancing work. I work with some you primarily, and then other dancers. And I've been working with cricketers and archers and basketball players and stuff like that. I'm very passionate about sports psychology and dance medicine. So that's a bit about me. Although I haven't really done dance myself or sports for that, but this is just something that I really enjoy doing.
Hey, but then your husband is a cricketer, right?
Yes, he is.
So you have seen his journey in performance,
front row seats,
training,
always,
injury management, and all of it. And you've seen,
and that's actually one of the primary reasons I'm so passionate about it, because there's just so much in this area that needs to be explored, and so much that needs to be brought to light, that is very popular in the West, but in the Indian setting, we still need to bring them, and we need to be implementing them on a daily basis. That people haven't really opened up to the idea of prehabilitation, to using movement as as a preventive measure. Mm-hmm. And we need to look into things like that.
So, yeah, and especially for children. And you're a new mom yourself. Congratulations.
Yes, I am.
So yeah, there's that personal investment in the subject.
A lot.
So as a sports physician, Dr. Harini, I would like your take on the significance of movement and dance. We'll come to dance later, but just let's talk about movement. So rolling, crawling, throwing, and catching, and all those things, how important it is, why it is important. So let's begin with that.
Okay, so we'd actually have to separate even this into age categories.
Yes, sure.
So if you take an infant, they're just experimenting with their limbs. They're still figuring out how their fingers work. They're still figuring out how their hands and legs work. And it's very important to let them do that. A lot of times we get worried if they're doing something and they're going to hurt themselves, but they probably are not. At the most, if they hurt themselves once, they're going to learn that, okay, this movement hurts me. And that is so important for their cognition. That is so important for their development. Us trying to protect them sometimes might actually hinder their development. That's one thing. And when we move on to, say, preschoolers, when we move on to even kids between up to the age of 7, it's very important for them to do their climbing, their hopping, skipping, running. Just let them go out on the streets and play. It's all right if they fall down. It's all right if they hurt themselves once or twice, because those are all things that not just develop their growth as in physical growth, but they also develop their mental toughness. They need to, when we protect them from physical harm like that, basic stuff. You kids are playing together on the street, they're like playing throw ball or something like that together, and one of them falls down, has a bruise. We are like, as a parent, me as well as a parent, we are so concerned about that. We're like, oh my god, my kid got hurt, I shouldn't let that happen again. But that is wrong. We need to let the kid go through those phases. It's only when they go through all of that, it's when they fall, maybe get a fever once, it's okay. That is so important for their immunity, that's so important for their cognition, and that's so much more important for their physical growth, because all of these activities, they help in their bone development. They help in the way their muscles adapt, their muscles, there is muscle memory in all of this. So
could you enlighten a little bit more about muscle memory for our audience?
Okay, so muscle memory, how it works is basically the first time, let's say a kid starts learning to walk, you have to hold the kid. You have to like maybe even tell the kid, put one foot in front of the other. Show the kid how to put one foot in front of the other. And it's going to take the kids, say, a couple of weeks. Some kids maybe some days, some kids maybe even a couple of months before the kid learns how to do that. But over a period of time, none of us at this age, we even think about it twice. You have to move from point A to point B, and your muscles just know what to do. And that is the most simplified form of muscle memory, if you can put it.
So that's where your central nervous system comes into play. We have to constantly teach our central nervous system how.
What are our regular activities? What are our regular movement patterns?
Yeah.
So it's when you teach all of that. If you make your kid sedentary, if your kid is like on the computer, like with present days and classes online and everything, and the kid is sedentary all the time, even basic activities like climbing up the stairs is going to be difficult for your kid.
Yeah.
They're going to get breathless for that. They're going to start getting pain for that, which is not ideal, not at this age.
Yeah. So let's split it into age groups and talk about it. So you spoke about 3 to 5 year olds. Let's talk about them. What kind of activity do they need, and why do they need it?
Okay, so 3 to 5 year olds, that's a very, very active age group. So the first thing that I'd like to put out on that factor is that we need to make sure that they're active for the greater part of their day. Okay. I think the recommended time frame comes around 3 to 4 hours a day for that age group. And they need to be active. They need to be doing things that, things that will improve their agility, things that will improve their cardiovascular abilities. We're making these like technical terms, but in reality, what they need to be doing, if you want to put it very simply, is let them run. Yeah. Let them hop, let them, play hopscotch, let them use a skipping rope, let them use a jump rope. Let them climb over things, take them to the local park and let them use a jungle gym, climb things. Let them try, if you have trees at home, let them climb those trees and pluck those fruits. Those are like everyday things that they'll be fun and will be good memories for them as well. At the same time, you're keeping them active.
Yeah, I think the best memories I have from my childhood is stealing mangoes from my neighbor's garden.
So true, so true, so do I.
And I feel sad that kids can't do it. And I can't blame the parents too, because things are unsafe. We don't have open areas anymore.
Very true.
But that is something we'll come back to later. So I suppose hopping, jumping, climbing, it comes from age group 3 to say 7, 8.
8, yes.
To be, and from what I understand from watching children in my studio trained in gymnastics, rolling forward and back, absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, and then stability, developing single leg balance, strength, like the basic, very basic stuff. We also need to talk about the 7 primal movements.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how important it is, like how naturally it develops in children and how adults.
The push, the pull, the lunge, the squat.
Yeah, so can you just list it out for me, please?
Oh my God. Okay, off the top of my head, I'm going to say a push, a pull, a lunge, a squat, a gait, as in a jog. Okay, I'm not able to remember the other 2. Twist? Yeah, I guess. And I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, I've forgotten to. But yeah, there's a reference and we can find it out and I'll put it up later on.
I'll figure it out.
So there are seven primal movements
there
that you can do naturally.
6 or 7. 7th one is running. 7th one is jogging, yeah.
Yeah. So children eventually biologically just naturally develop. It's, I think, encoded in our DNAs. But then as we, in the modern world, because we don't climb trees anymore, we don't hunt, we don't run. So we forget a lot of these movements.
And we've got machinery to do most of our household works as well.
Yeah. So we lose the ability to lunge, squat, push, pull, run, twist, which is so sad. And that
Exactly.
leads to imbalances in the body, that leads to pain. It leads to, I mean, even the mental health is connected to the physical health. So that happens too. I can talk a lot about on that subject. So yeah, so these are some movements that children ought to train when they are kids. And as they grow into teenage and adulthood, they must keep practicing it in the gym in the form of weight sports, or also depends on their sport and interest.
Of course.
Okay, we spoke about 3 to 5 years. They need 3 to 4 hours a day of activity and proportionate sleep and rest, because that's when the body recovers and grows. Then let's come to 6 to 10 years of age.
6 to 10 years.
Yes.
It's a very, I mean, it's in a age group where the kids start understanding things to a level, but they're also curious. So, they try to put those two things together. You see kids doing a lot of experiments in those age groups. You see kids trying to do new stuff, things that you are like, okay, is it even absolutely safe for my kid to be doing this? But then your kid's like, I don't care. I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyways. So that is the age group where, again, at least 2 to 3 hours of physical activity is a must. Kids need to be given that because they have that much of energy. So this is something I wanted to say a little earlier on. So I'm going to just put it here. Kids from the moment they're born, I mean, they're not born with a 80 to 85 beats per minute heart rate like adults do. Okay. Kids usually have about 160 beats per minute.
Kids, what age?
When they're born, about 140, 160. And from there, their heart rate slowly starts coming down as they get towards teenage, towards adulthood. It's around teenage that their heart rate actually comes to what we know as the normal.
Okay.
So with that level of heart rate, you need to understand their metabolism is that high as well. And they need to be, and we are, as parents, we keep feeding kids. We keep wanting them to, eat properly. You need to grow, but we don't give them the right amount of activity they need to burn all that they're eating. And that is
childhood obesity these days, isn't it?
A lot. That's what is happening. So we focus so much on what they eat that we are not focusing on how do they expend that energy. So it's all getting into their body, and that age group 6 to 10 is like so, they're like very vulnerable to childhood obesity. Because that's the age group where the kids start liking all fast food as well. They have moved on from just eating whatever their mom gives them, and they start asking, I want fries, I want a pizza, I want a burger. And that's the age group where they start throwing tantrums, everything. So we really need to be mindful on putting them in maybe like dance classes, put them in sports. I wouldn't say specialize them, but put them in some random play groups. Have a play group, let them go spend time with their friends, cycle around the area, let them swim, but they need to keep doing something. It doesn't have to be one specific road. We're not looking at performance right now. We're just looking at them burning their energy. And it's not about learning skills either, because they've already done that up to 5 or 6 years of age. They've been learning their movement patterns already. So we need to put those movement patterns to use by this age.
Okay, so as much activity as they can get. I am a huge proponent of free play, unmonitored, unstructured, a bunch of kids just go.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen curiosity like really enhances their creativity, really enhances. They learn important social skills. They learn to negotiate. They learn to resolve conflict.
So much. Social skills develop a lot when kids are in a group.
All these human feelings that it's not natural to all of us, jealousy, anger, I mean, what we categorize as negative, that's when they're feeling very intensely. And as adults, we need to guide them. And
it's only when they go through those kinds of free play times, when they go through those group activities, that they actually learn how to channelize those emotions.
Yes.
It's not they're going to keep them in and it's going to just burst out as anger towards their family. I've seen a lot with that. I've seen kids who don't know what they're doing. They just go around, they start crying, or they start hitting their mother and father. But that's because they don't know how to vent those emotions. They don't know how to channelize those emotions.
Yeah. So much related to activity and free play, isn't it?
Very much.
Yeah. So, okay. So period. Children need activity. Children need free play, probably more than all the extra lessons.
Flashing those lights around that statement. Children need activity.
Yes, they need movement.
Yes.
So yeah, one thing I've been seeing as a dance teacher, and especially in the Indian context, I became an engineer too, sort of forced into it. So we give so much importance to academics like things related to it. Like I've seen children do some UN sessions, which I never understood, which is all very important, public speaking and all that. But at the cost of movement, at the cost of playtime, what do you think is that? I think it's a leading question, but yeah, what do you think?
It's not a leading question. It's actually something that people need to think about. It's something that people really need to put some time thinking about, because see, you're making your kids sedentary, you're making your kids sit down and study all day. I mean, if you were supposed to do that, would you be able to? That's the first thing you need to think about. You wouldn't be able to sit down for more than half an hour at a stretch. I'm pretty sure if you think back to your childhood, you did not sit for more than half an hour at a stretch. No. And that is so important. And the other thing is, being physically active also keeps their mind active. When you're doing physical stuff, when you say you're climbing, or when you're just I don't know, when you're throwing things around, and your right brain and left brain are both working at the same time. Without the kid's knowledge, if you just maybe stand a little far away, observe your kid playing in the playground with their friends, you'd actually notice that sometimes your kid does two completely different activities with both hands. I mean, try doing that by yourself consciously. You will not be able to. And that is, cognition in itself. That is your kid's mental development in itself. And this is something that I experienced myself. So in the school that I did my 10th grade in, we'd start classes. I had to get to school by 5:30 in the morning. Okay. So the practice over there was that you get there at 5:30 and you have to play some active physical sport for 1 hour. You're not allowed to play carom. You're not allowed to play chess. You can play anything you want, but it has to be you getting up and running around. And then they'd give us breakfast and take us to class, and we'd finish classes by 12 noon. And believe me, everything they taught us stood right here. Yeah. Because it makes your brain so fresh. I mean, how would you even think about being so fresh at that early in the morning? Yeah. But it just makes your brain so fresh, and it makes you so receptive to whatever you're hearing, whatever you're studying. Yeah. And that makes such a huge difference. Yeah. So
what would you say, 5 hours of studying or 2 hours of play and 3 hours of studying, which is more productive and efficient?
I don't think we could put a time on it per se, because I mean, if you ask some people, they would. But my take on it is that it depends on the kid really. Because some kids are like quick learners, they grasp fast, they learn really fast. So in that case, there is no point in making them sit for 2 hours or 3 hours just because you have this time frame in mind.
And yet we see that happen, which is why I'm not to it.
So true. So
I mean, that kid studied for 5 hours. Why aren't you studying for more than 2?
Exactly. You don't need to. Yeah. You don't need to study for 5 hours just because your neighbor's kid's studying for 5 hours. That's their capacity. And this is your capacity. So assess the kid at first. Assess your kid. See what your kid's capability is. If your kid is smarter, if your kid is brighter, I wouldn't tag it that way, but I'm just saying, if your kid is someone who can grasp things sooner than others, then let them do that and let them go on and get into some extracurriculars. You never know the kinds of skills they'd learn, because in the world today, it's more than your degree.
Definitely.
Your skills matter. So let your kids learn those skills if they have the time to do that.
I mean, so as an adult, I find the skills that have served me the most is the ability to handle conflict. I would always say that because it happens every day at different levels.
It happens every single day.
Yeah. Then time management. Am I able to keep my house clean and still go to work and make time for workouts and still connect with friends? Time management. If as a kid I'm only told to sit and study, how am I going to learn that? So
exactly.
Yes. And then as an adult, what I feel is very important, time management is there. There's able to network.
Financial management.
And ability to network with people, because end of the day we are social beings.
So important
to network and get things done. So that is another thing I think kids learn in the playground and
you need to just be able to go to someone and talk to them. And kids in the playground, they meet another new kid and they're like, they can just go speak to them. Yeah. At that age, they don't have inhibition, but when you stop them from that, they start learning inhibition.
With kids being cooped up in their houses for 2 years due to COVID, I mean, which had to be done, but I spoke to a psychologist and what she said was, give it a few years and then you will see the harm that this has done to children. Like,
so true.
It's horrible for kids to be indoors. And I think also touch for children matters, to be able to hold their friend's hand, to hug, to push and play and shove. You see it in animals too. It's as important for human children as well. Yeah.
It's like, so touch is a very important factor when it comes to building relationships. I mean, you could put your kid on an online session with their friend and they could be chatting for hours, but that connect that they get by just holding their friend's hand and running around the playground.
Yes.
Or when you fall down and your friend comes and helps you get up, just that touch, that gives a different kind of connect, a different kind of a relationship, and that is so important. And in fact, that on that note, I'd also like to say, parents, you also need to touch your children more. You need, as in, don't take it in the wrong sense, but I mean, hold them, hug them. It's okay. If you have a boy kid, it's okay to kiss your son.
Yeah.
Please hug your son. Please hug your daughter. It's so important. Parents, they do it till a certain age and then they slowly start moving away. It's okay if your kid's a 25-year-old. Hug her. It's that important.
I know. I've seen that in my studio often enough. So yes, we talked about how at 3 to 5 years, children need 3 to 4 hours of activity. Their metabolism is directly related to their heart rate, which reduces as they grow up into adults, but is really high when they're children. The 7 primal movements that children do naturally, we should keep them into practice as they grow older. And even as adults, as parents or teachers, we ought to do it in ourselves. Lunge, squat, push, pull. This is all available on the internet. People can check it out. Then we talked about 6 to 10 years old, the curiosity that they develop and the vulnerability that they have towards, they get impacted by so many things and they want to eat things that they shouldn't eat. So at that time, activity becomes even more important. Movement training becomes very important. So movement training, it can look like, so in my experience, this is what I tell students at my studio. Fine, you're here for dance class, but whether you like it or not, gymnastics is mandatory training at least once a week. You must go for swimming at least 1 to 2 times a week because it's great for recovery. And you must do ballet 1 class a week, whether you like it or not. So I can call it a technique class, but mostly it's putting them on the bar or making them do the center work but that's more dance specific. But even in terms of, yes,
yeah, go ahead.
So even in terms of movement training, I mean, dance is for everyone. Gymnastics, I think up to the age of say 6 to 8, gymnastics is must, swimming is must, dance of some sort is must. Whether they take it professionally or not, it's up to them. But I think every child loves to move. Every child loves
very
to
much, very much.
And we start.
The thing I'm noticing that you're doing is that exposing them to free movement again.
Free movement, yes.
Even though they're coming to you for one particular kind of dance, you're showing them that specialization doesn't happen right now.
Yes,
you're letting them
about specialization. Yes.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so children need these different kinds of movement to develop strength in different planes of movement, balancing out both sides of the body, front and back, up and down. So that is one thing. Did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so to that, what I wanted to say is, if you observe our daily activities, what we normally do, everything is frontal. It's either in the frontal plane or it's in the transverse plane, as in everything is forward facing.
Yeah.
You bend forward.
Or twisting.
Or twist to the sides. You don't do anything to your back.
Yeah, the whole posterior chain, right?
Exactly. So we neglect that so much because none of our daily activities require us using that as much, except for when we're lifting weights or something, when our spine comes to support us. But are we doing any work to support the spine? Are we doing any work to give it that strength to help us do those work? Which we aren't, which we don't even think about twice. We don't even think about our back. When let's say a teenage boy goes to the gym, the first thing he's like, I want to pump up my biceps. I want to have like this chiseled abs and stuff like that. I mean, okay, you have chiseled abs, but at the cost of that, are you going to break your back? So, that is so important. And that comes when kids start playing things like this.
So for the sake of the audience, can you please define what the posterior chain of the body is?
Okay, so when we put it very simply, anything that starts from the nape of your neck, all the muscles, the bones, the joints, the ligaments, the tendons, everything that starts from the back, from the nape of your neck, right down to your coccygeal bone, as in the bone that ends in your butt. And from there, in some contexts, we would also take it down to the back of your legs, all the way down to your foot. But mainly it's, everything that is around your spine and whatever supports it. So that is what we would typically term as the posterior chain. And
so let's say the back, the hips, the hamstrings, calves.
Exactly.
Okay, which is
so, but hamstrings and calves, we generally tend to put effort into it because, I mean, you can't really train your legs without training those. But we don't think much about the spine. We don't think much about the paraspinal muscles. In our everyday activity, we don't even think that we're using it, except when all of a sudden you get a low back pain.
When we are sitting down, we are not using any of it unless we pull something to climb. We're not using the back at all. Unless we get up from the chair 50 times, we're not really using the hips at all.
Exactly.
And coming back to children, this is what I've noticed: 2 years of online dance education, a toll on the teacher, a toll on the kids. I am seeing kids, forget about issues with the eyes. They have shoulder pain, imbalances. One shoulder hurts more than the other, maybe because they sit with the same hand moving the mouse. They're getting more and more hunched. And I've even seen a case of lower back pain. So
in kids,
in a 10-year-old child.
And that is something that is alarming. It's something that needs to wake people up.
It needs to wake people up, yes. Which is why I keep thinking after COVID, when children return to schools, what is more important, getting them up to date with all the information, or getting them, the kind of physical development that happens in that particular age, because if you miss out on that age group.
The thing is, getting them in sync with the physical development of that age is actually going to be harder than getting them in sync with the information. That can be done at any point of time.
Yes, we can teach them.
Yeah. But their age, every age, every milestone has its own, importance. And they've already skipped 2-3 years. Like, so you take a 15-year-old, it's not going to make much of a difference. But you take an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old, it's going to make so much of a difference in their development.
Yeah.
So
I've also seen kids cannot throw and catch. So many of them, they can't throw, they can't catch. The coordination is missing, or the strength in their shoulder, the whole chain is missing.
I've seen kids who find it difficult to jump rope.
No, I am insisting on all my students jump rope.
I spent most of my life, my entire childhood was with my skipping rope. I'm like, what are you kids doing?
But can you add to it why it is important and what kind of development happens when you're, say, skipping rope or playing hopscotch?
So when we'll approach both sports separately. So when you skip rope, you are, of course, strengthening your posterior chain. You are giving activity to literally almost every muscle in your body, because you're using your upper body, you're using your legs, you're using your back. And you subconsciously, your brain is like, so you make sure you don't trip on the rope. So you are learning proprioception. You are learning, you're learning right hand, left hand coordination. Because they need to be in sync. Your entire body needs to be in sync. So it's almost like, if you put it in some ways, it's almost a meditative state. Your kid skipping, say, 100, 200 times a day, that is so much of CNS activity right there.
CNS means the central nervous system.
Central nervous system, the central nervous system activity right there. Your kid's learning that much of coordination. Your kids is actually learning balance as well.
And to be able to focus for that so deeply for that period of time, and then imagine translating it into the academic work.
Exactly. That is going to like, I don't know, boost things so much.
Yeah. I would like to add to that something I learned while training in the gym: tendon conditioning. We talk about muscles.
Very much.
So tendons of different joints, at different joints where the muscles attach. Because when I found that I've never been able to jump very much because I did not practice jumping as a child. I did skipping rope, but not like proper plyometrics. I wish I had a coach there. So now when I try,
no jumping off the wall, I guess.
Now when I try to do, say, a grand jeté in ballet, when I trained for 9 good months and did some tendon conditioning, I was actually able to do it. And now I can't do it. So I wish for my students that they should be able to do it continuously throughout their life whenever they want to. So I really hope they do condition their tendons, which
basically
means rope to begin with.
What the thing is if say you had done that in your childhood, that would have gone into your muscle memory. So it would have just been so deeply ingrained than it is when you're an adult.
Yes. And the chances of injuries go up as well as an adult when you train plyo and stuff.
Exactly. Because after a certain age, once all your epiphyseal plates have all developed completely, it's just for a short period of time that they stay that way. After that, they start degenerating because everything that grows in our body starts going back down again. So into adulthood, degeneration happens a lot. So you're so much more prone to injury.
Tell me about it.
I know. So just make use of that childhood. Stop depriving them of it.
Yeah. Okay, shall we talk about specialization in sports?
Yes, of course. Yes, that's so important.
So
Do you
let's
want to
talk
start?
about mindsets first. Like when people talk about, or a child talks about, oh, I love cricket, football, dance, gymnastics. And then the parent, of course, with goodwill in their heart, are very invested and they take them to the same classes over and over. Specialization starts very early. And then in a lot of cases, it's been reported injuries. I mean, it's like, as a physician, you don't even have to think. It's a no-brainer. Injuries are bound to happen. So let's talk about specialization. What is specialization? When to start, and how do you know that it's ready? It's time for starting specialization. And until then, what should the child do? And that's 3 questions.
Okay, great. So first, what is specialization? That is something we need to address. So just like in every other field, specialization means you are focusing more and more on one particular thing. So when we're talking about movement, it is focusing on one kind of movement pattern, or one group of movement pattern, depending on the sport you choose. So that is something that it is important if you're going to look into performance. If it's important if you're going to take up that sport as your career option, it's so important to start early to specialize in that. But the question again is about how early. When do you start into specialization? The recommended though is about 12 years of age, closer to the time when you start hitting puberty. That is when they suggest start specialization. Until then, you have to go into free flow movement, animal flow also, if you will. Just go ahead, go do free flowing movement. But the thing is, again, parents, like you said, when a kid says, Dad, I really like cricket, or when a kid says, I want to play football, they want to they're like so invested. They want their kids to have the best, and which is really good. I wouldn't say that's wrong. So they go around, they Google, and they find like the best academy and this and that, and then they put their kids in that. Okay, you put your kid in that academy. I'm not going to say no to that either. The problem doesn't come there though. The problem comes when, okay, the kid's going for an hour's class at that academy, and the kid comes back home, finishes their studies and all of that stuff. And when the kid wants to play again, the parent is like, you need to practice that. You need to practice that sport. That is where the problem comes. The kid needs to be able to switch off from that sport, whatever he's practicing during his sessions, and play something else. Because there's this common thing. So when you see in swimmers, if you see a swimmer who's been swimming from say 6-7 years of age, by the time they're 18, 19, if you look at their body, their legs, their shoulder, everything would have adapted to the sport. The way it moves, everything will be different. I'm sure you've seen that in ballet as well. The kids' flexibility, the kids' agility, everything changes. It changes in line with that sport. But the problem comes because your body is not meant to move that way.
To do the same thing over and over.
Over and over. Exactly.
At the cost of other kinds of movements.
Exactly. So what happens is those other kinds of movements are lagging behind. The muscles that do the other kinds of movements are slowly becoming weaker. And at some point of time, they're going to start showing. And that is how injuries happen. Usually those muscles give up. And there's this thing that says one joint above, one joint below. You know that rule.
Yeah.
So that rule, how it works basically is you'd be using one joint frequently.
Yeah.
You'd start feeling the pain in that joint because you're using it frequently. But in reality, if you look at where the weakness is, it would be in either a joint above or a joint below.
Yeah.
Which you may or may not be using.
Yeah. Because body being a kinetic chain and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything is linked.
Everything is linked.
So that is one of the hazards of specialization, but you have to do it too. So it's kind of like a balance. So I would suggest that if you're going to put your kid, say your kid is like super passionate about cricket and you want to put your kid, into professional cricket, and you're starting at 7-8 years of age, till they're at least 12 or 13, till they've hit their puberty. Don't try to push them. Don't try to, specialize them. Don't say, okay, you've finished your practice, come home and do shadow practice. Don't do that. If they come home, let them play football. Let them swim. Let them just run.
And play with other children, free play, even for
Exactly.
adults. Oh my God.
Just again, coming back to all of that, again, just climb, just jump, just fall. Like you said, climb over a wall and jump on the other side. For heaven's sakes, please.
I would still do that.
So that is what my take on specialization is, and I'm pretty sure quite a few other sports physicians would agree as well.
Let's say a parent has a 6-year-old child, anywhere between 5 to 8, and they love a certain sport. So this is my take, but I'm not an expert as a physician. What I tell them is 1 class of gymnastics, absolutely. 1 to 2 sessions of swimming, absolutely. And then you pick your sport. And preferably 2 different sports, because even if the kids say doesn't like something else, you never know, you got to get them some exposure. So say badminton and the football that the kid really wants to do, or dance and something else. And dance is something I would say is for everyone, because children love dancing, partying. So partying in their own way with bare feet in the studio. We do that all the time.
And on that thing again, I'm seeing another trend that's happening recently. A lot of schools without playgrounds.
Yes, schools without playgrounds should not be allowed.
Which makes no sense to me at all.
Okay. I see children eating their lunch in their classrooms.
What's insane. So they keep saying techno schools. I'm like, there's enough technology in the world. Please give them a playground.
Yes, I'm very passionate on the subject of playground, safe spaces for children to play, not monitored by parents or teachers. And I think it's our responsibility as citizens to take this up with the corporation or the local government. Give our children playgrounds. We do not need more malls. We do not need more bigger buildings.
You want to make money out of it, it's okay. We'll pay you an entry fee. Just give us a playground.
A playground, an open playground. So where I live, where my parents live, I love going down and just watching children play, because they still have playgrounds. This township was built decades ago, and it was planned in such a way because children need to play.
Exactly. And the thing is, see, when a kid has access to a PE class in school, and that is again, stop taking PE class for maths or physics. Let them have their PE class.
Yes, please.
But the thing is, when they go for that, they play different sports over there.
Yeah.
Unlike, so if we had to put a kid in all those sports, that's a whole chunk of our income going into just classes and coaching fees. Yeah. In school, they get to play those different sports. They're exposed to so many sports.
Yes.
And it gives them an opportunity to identify where they really, they connect with. Yes. What really is their area.
Yes.
So that is so important.
School is crucial. Yeah.
It's so crucial.
And I think
it's not supposed to be 1 class a week. It needs to be at least 2 or 3.
Yeah. And administrators need to take it seriously. They need to slot it properly, get the kids out there and have good coaches, maybe with an assistant coach too.
So much, yes.
And when the kids come back home, ought to go out and play. Just go out and play. I don't do summer programs in my studio because I do not believe children should go for any sort of structured program in the summer. Let them be bored.
I know. Let them be so bored that they want to go out and play.
Yeah, go out and play, come up with something creative. I started writing poetry because I was bored out of my mind. And I've said this to my students, but I really want to get this out there into the world too. It's so important. Cognitive development, creative development, imagination. A child's imagination is already so rich. Why do we want to spoil it?
You start structuring them, you start narrowing them, you start limiting their abilities by choosing what they have to do. Yes. And the kids been to classes the whole year. Give them those 3 months off, will you?
Yes. I don't believe in summer programs. I don't. Yeah. And there's been a study that I was reading recently, for example, ballet schools. The child trains in ballet the year long, and then they have a special summer school where they train the same movement patterns more intensely, more hours, and it's dangerous. That's what the article said. This is a new study.
This almost sounds like those Chinese Olympic camps.
Yes. And it happens everywhere. It's very common. There's no tapering. Good. Tapering technique is another thing I learned when I was training. And
it's very important.
Yeah. Could you define what tapering is for the audience?
Okay, so tapering is basically this concept where you progress into something or progress out of something. You don't just load the kid over and over and over. It doesn't work that way. You need to give them that time. You teach them a certain technique. The body needs to take it into their muscle memory for, give them a week, give them 2 weeks, and then move on to the next step. You don't just, okay, I take a 3-month summer program and I'm just going to load you with information. Your body's going to break down.
Yeah.
it's going to get injured.
And my understanding, again, with respect to tapering technique, when it comes to performance, on the day of the performance, a day before, do not practice what you're supposed to
Very
perform.
much.
Take the day off. Some
Rest.
activity like swimming is great because it's recovery. Spend time with your family, no screens, good music. And even for exams, I've suggested this to my students. Academic exams too. A day before your exam, just chill, do some physical activity, be happy. You will perform a lot better because when you're so de-stressed physically and mentally, your performance goes up in a lot of ways. So, and similarly in sports. So I've made this mistake for myself before, where I'm like, I'm getting closer to my dance exam. I'm going to practice harder and harder. And then my physiotherapist tells me, okay, Prerna, there's something called tapering technique. Why don't you go and study about it? And then I realized a day before my exam, I should.
You're actually getting burnt out.
Yes.
You're not able to give your best performance.
Yes. And then injuries too. So injuries recovery is for children and adolescents is something I want to cover in part 2 of our conversation. What is the time though? 11:45. I think we've covered quite. So yes, so specialization at 12 when the kids are around the age of puberty is a good time to start. Otherwise, it leads to overloading, leads to overuse injuries. I can personally vouch for that because I have plenty of overuse injuries. Strength training. Quickly, let's go over yes or no for children. At what age and in what form and how to do it.
Strength training is a yes at any age, but in what form is the question that is more important. So putting them in a gym, people do it. People do it from 3 years of age, which is okay. Which is okay as far as, again, you keep in mind that you don't specialize the kid in a specific form of training. You don't push them in just one direction and they kind of use everything. They kind of strengthen everything. So in that case, it's good. But you don't have to put them in a gym either. Basically, they're everyday physical activities, everyday things that they do. If you just let them do it, their muscles are going to get strengthened at that age. I'm saying, at 3 to 5 or even 3 to even 8, 9. Just let them do their things. Just, what do we do in the gym, Prerna? Just generally. I mean, we've been there. So what do we do in the gym?
The 7 primal movements in different angles and forms.
In different angles, in different ways. And that is what kids are doing anyways.
Yeah. So, but when we do give them like special exercises, like when I make my students do lunges, then you need to watch out for the form, make sure that it's balanced on both sides and so on.
That is definitely there. So the thing is, I would say maybe from up to like 5, 6 years, let their free movement itself works as strength for them. After which you can start looking into form.
That will also depend on the kind of sport the child does, and if they're not engaged in any sport, then let's just do an exercise routine thing.
Exactly. I was just getting to that. So if the kid is in a sport, if the kid is in dance, you do not want their free movement hindering their dance performance. You do not want their free movement causing an injury in their sport. So that is the time when you start looking into form.
Okay.
Until which, for a kid per se, their body is so fluid. Unlike adults, where we've got like a lot of knots, we've got almost everything is tight. Kids' body is fluid. So you can just let them do what they have to do. Unless they're going to go into a specific kind of a line, you're going to go into a specific sport. In that case, then start looking at form. Because they're going to be doing a specific monitored, structured movement pattern when they're in that sport, when they're in that, dance is also a sport, according to me, aesthetic sport it is. So when they're in that sport, they're going to be doing things in a particular way. So you do not want their free-flowing movement causing an injury by doing things in a particular way.
So what you're saying is the movement patterns they do in this sport or as conditioning exercises for this sport should not be repeated in their free time.
Not necessarily. So what ideally would happen is that until then, they would be doing it every which way. When you start teaching them form, that form would translate into their free-flowing movement.
Okay, which is a good thing.
Which is a very good thing.
Yeah.
So in the long run, say, so right now, thankfully for me, I've been like reading up on it, and I've been like since before my delivery, I've been reading up on it, and I learned how I need to lift my kid to prevent a back pain. Exactly. A lot of parents, what do? They just bend over and they lift your kid, which is very wrong. I mean, when your kid is like a month old, it won't hurt you. But when your kid is, 8 months old and like 8 kgs, like my son is right now, your back's going to go for a toss.
So you're saying hinge patterns, better
Hinge pattern, squat and lift your kid.
squat and lift. Okay.
Keep a neutral back.
Okay.
These are things that you cannot consciously implement.
I see mothers, I work mostly with moms. They bring their children to, so many of them have back pain, which is normal because after delivery, they've not addressed the imbalances that happen.
Exactly.
And
even during pregnancy, you see women, so lordosis, as in, pushing your tummy forward and bending back, is very common in pregnancy. But if you try and focus on maintaining a neutral back throughout your pregnancy as much as possible, I know it's physiologically very difficult, but as much as physiologically it permits and without giving you any discomfort, that is going to translate into rehabilitating. It's almost like a prehab for your back. It's preparing your back for what you're going to do after you deliver. And then that neutral spine technique will get ingrained in your back's muscle memory. So it won't be a conscious effort when you're lifting your kid. So it's like that. It's very similar to that.
So strength training is a yes for kids, and even for those kids who want to go to the gym and train, as long as the loading is responsibly done and under guidance. Quickly, let's talk about girls and movement training, because as girls approach puberty, especially with menstruation starting, how does it impact their, not how menstruation impacts them, but how movement training at that time impacts young girls?
Okay. So the one thing that we're seeing very commonly these days is PCOD. And also we're also seeing girls attaining menarche sooner, as in their first period sooner, than usual. In some ways, that there is actually research backing this, that regular physical activity sets it right. In very simple terms, it just sets it right. Your physical activity will, so when a girl's going to hit her puberty, when a girl's going to get menarche, it's not an overnight thing. It's not like, last week your body decided to change and, this week you got your period. It doesn't work that way. Your body's hormones have been changing for quite some time. And it's just been happening so subtly. And with all the obesity and with all the sedentary lifestyle and everything, those hormones are like just muddled up. You actually, if you notice it, you can take a moment and, again, like I said, sit far away and look at your kids. After the age of 11, you start seeing girl kids becoming a little irritable.
Becoming a little?
Irritable.
Okay.
Yes, after 11 or 12. It depends. Whenever their puberty is going to hit, you look at them for at least 6 months before that. They start turning irritable. They start showing PMS symptoms already. And that's because their hormones are all over the place. They have no clue what's happening. And in a lot of ways, exercise and physical activity and a structured physical activity program, all of these things, it kind of balances those hormones out.
Okay. So the effects of the hormones.
Exactly. The mental levels of the hormone itself. When the levels of the hormones are getting balanced, the effects are also balanced by themselves.
Okay. So there's someone who told me, a very renowned physiotherapist, that the endocrine system regulation is absolutely necessary for everyone. So when we're talking hormones here, we're talking about the endocrine system and the role exercise and movement and dance play in the regulation of endocrine system. So
completely do.
Yes. So girls being sedentary is an absolute no, especially because it's not the boys who menstruate, it's women. Okay. So boys and dance, quickly talk about the mindsets, dance as an aesthetic sport and a sense of community. We discussed this before, that boys are not getting because they're mostly into physical aggressive things, nothing that brings out expression, brings out normal human feelings. Let's not classify them as girls' feelings and boys' feelings.
Correct. Very much.
A good outlet for it. Yeah, so let's talk about boys and dance.
Why? It's a very exciting topic for me and something I really
love. You have a boy.
Yes, I do. So the first thing, it just starts from the moment the kid's born, to be very honest. Okay. So the moment the family knows it's a boy, have you seen this common trend with, Desi parents where they're like, if it's a girl, it's a doctor. If it's a boy, it's an engineer.
Yeah, earlier, yes, but currently I don't know. I think parents.
I don't know if it's still there, though. Luckily for me, it was it. But it's just there. So, that's stereotyping. What I mean to say with that is stereotyping. They start stereotyping from the day the kid's born. I remember I had these discussions, these even arguments per se with my husband when I wanted to dress my boy in pastel colors.
Okay.
So he'd be like, why are you doing that to him? Why is he in pink? I'm like, it's okay. It's absolutely okay. It's just a color. It looks good on him.
And I think
So
it's your son who needs to know that it's okay, so that later on he
exactly.
doesn't have biases and,
And
boys
it's like,
have.
right. And people just think that, it's he's like less than a year old. He's probably not going to remember anything. He
Yeah.
doesn't know anything and stuff like that. But that's not true. Kids may not remember incidents, but kids always remember how they feel.
Yeah. Especially
It's
I
like
think
it all
consciousness develops around the age of 3 and 4. So that's
exactly
when memories are forming and
everything.
yeah,
Yes.
it's remembering.
So the kid, it's like almost subconscious. The kid may not exactly remember what caused that feeling,
Mm.
but it's just there. It just sits in their subconscious. And when parents stereotype, a guy has to play with I don't know, a GI Joe or a dinosaur or a truck, and a girl can play with Barbies. That stereotyped feeling gets into the kid. So
Mm.
if, let's say, the kid grows up and wants to pursue dance also,
Mm.
he is scared.
Yes.
He feels judged. He feels stereotyped. And he doesn't feel confident enough to go and tell the parent that, see, this is what I like doing. I'm into arts. I'm
Mm.
into aesthetic sports.
Yeah.
So
This is a personal experience, and a lot of people might relate. At a wedding, we were all dancing, and there's a 4-year-old little boy watching us. And I just went to him and I said, "Why don't you come join us? Come, like, move with us." And he's like, "Gee, dance is for girls."
oh
And
God.
that just broke my heart because, dude, you're 4 years old. I know you love
Exactly.
movement, and music makes you want to express yourself, and clearly it's the parents' voice coming out of the kid's mouth.
Very much. and
Sad.
and and you think, I mean, at 4 years old, how much does the kid really know? But in reality they do, because for the past 3 years of their life they haven't been talking much. They've just been listening. They've
It's
just
all,
been watching and observing.
yeah,
So everything is in their brains,
yeah,
and we need to be conscious of that effort from day one.
yeah,
We can't really think that the kid doesn't know. The kid does. And before that, for that, we need to condition ourselves.
yeah,
So there is no gender bias. There is no gender separation. It's okay for either gender to do the other thing.
yeah.
I mean, like, I knew of this. There was a PG when I was in college,
Mhm.
and she chose orthopedics, trauma care.
Okay.
And I know the amount of ridicule she faced. I mean, like, how often do you see a female in orthopedics and stuff like that? And because it's a very guys thing, but she was like, "This is what I like doing. I like trauma care. I like orthopedics, and this is what I'm going to do." And
Mm.
I think people need to normalize that.
Mm.
It's okay. It's okay for a guy to get into gynecology. It's okay for a guy to dance. It's okay for a girl to play football. It's
Yeah,
completely fine. It's not a man's world. It's not a woman's world. It's
yeah.
just our world as humans, and we can all do what we want to do.
And especially little boys and girls do not need these gendered segregations. All children,
Exactly.
I personally believe all children love to move, whether that movement looks like play, dance, or exercise. Like, play some music, and any child will just pump their arms and legs up in the air.
They like to do that. I mean, we've
I
all
don't get
seen
that.
kids like dance to all these item songs and everything. It's not that they know what it means. They
Yeah,
just like those beats, and that beats make them want to move.
yeah,
Why curb that expression? Why curb that independence?
yes. Oh, I love that, what you just said. Why curb it? When your child is finding joy in something, why take it away from
Exactly.
them?
Just let them do it. Your
Yes.
kid's happy, dude. Isn't that what you want?
And the teachers like me who love to party with the 4-year-olds with, like,
I
bare feet,
know.
darkened rooms, taking the torchlight and waving it all around, playing music and letting the kids move. And I have seen, and this was told to me a parent before as well, how much more confident the child has gotten. And
Mhm,
I know that children open up with me. I mean, this is not to
mhm.
self-congratulate, but just to get the information out there. Maybe I'll get that parent to come and talk about it as well. Like,
Definitely.
how a good teacher can really impact a child's life, inspire them, make them more confident. And this goes for all teachers, not just dance teachers and math teachers and PE teachers. So the role that a teacher can play, so it's very important to make sure that you're going to the right place for that kind of training. Like, even specialization, you go to a sports academy, a cricket academy, make sure that they have, of course, they have good coaches for cricket, but they also have somebody who understands child psychology and
It's so important.
conditioning for children. And when they come back home, the parent understands psychology as much as anybody else.
That
So
so, like, I recently had a post on my page. So But for the efficient growth and development of an athlete or of a child or of anyone, if you're putting them in a sport, it is so important that the coach and the parent and the athlete stay in sync.
Yes. The triangle
needs one of them, exactly, the triangle. If even one of them is out of sync, it's going to put the whole thing off balance.
Yeah, I've seen
and that's
that.
something parents need to know.
Yeah, things have fallen through sometimes. I've noticed that when I and the parent were not on the same page, it didn't work out.
It's so important, yes.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to talk about, COVID and kids, children returning to schools, then going back to home, then returning to schools again for a period of time. Personally, this is something I want to get out there. Children need to move a lot more to catch up with all the losses that they've suffered in terms of physical growth and the cognitive growth that's related to it. The lessons they have missed in physics, math, whatever, they're going to catch up. I believe that because, and I speak that as a dance, not just as a dance teacher, but as a person who was very academically oriented and still am. Was topped a few subjects, did really well, did my engineering, worked as an engineer, and now I want to specialize in dance and movement. So as a person who's been in academics, who's been in the corporate world and who owns a dance studio now, I am telling you there's nothing more important than children moving, developing movement patterns, good social skills, good conflict resolution skills, getting out there, playing, touching, hugging other children, and whatever ways, like boys express it sometimes by shoving each other, but that's important too. Yeah. So children must move. And as teachers and parents and physicians, we need to make sure we give them a safe space to do that.
Definitely do.
Yeah, I think Harini, Dr. Harini, we should start a petition to the government saying we do not want more malls, give us more space for open, huge playgrounds. You don't even have to set up a cricket thing and this thing just for children.
Yeah, don't just give an open playground to us and we'll figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, let's do that. Make a movement out of that.
Maybe we should, yes.
Yes, lots of trees for children to climb, pluck. I mean, how many kids can identify this is a guava tree and a mango tree?
I know. I mean, see, a major chunk of my childhood, I remember throwing stones at a tamarind tree. Okay, and I'm like, people don't even understand how good that is.
The joy of it. And then climbing trees, the way your back muscles develop, just to make it more technical here, but so important.
It's like people think it's a very simple thing, but they don't understand how intricate each of those movements have actually shaped us for who we are today.
Yes.
When you think about it, our grandparents are way more resilient than we are, and our children are becoming much more weaker. And if you really put your thought into it, you'd see how much of physical work our grandparents did.
Yeah. And resilient being your ability to bounce back from
so much. My grandmother, touchwood, my grandmother's 82. And let me tell you, I don't even have 30% of the energy that she does at 82. I mean, I think she's 82. Okay, my grandfather's 82. My grandmother's somewhere around that age. But they're both in their 80s. And they both are so resilient. They both have so much energy at this age. And I'm like tired 10 minutes in. My grandma's like, come, let's go. We've got the next work to do. I'm like, it's okay, just relax.
That's because you did not play as a child.
Yeah, probably. I mean, did not play enough, I guess.
As much enough, yeah.
Yeah.
Children need free play, they need movement, they need exercise, and they definitely need dancing.
So much.
Yes.
That's great.
Okay, so this was been an hour of our conversation. I had this idea of like summarizing it in Hindi and in Tamil for the
great. I'll try my best in Tamil.
Okay. So I'm gonna, why don't you go ahead, and if you want my guidance on the points that I've noted down, I'm happy to help. So we started off talking about children, age groups, activity levels, and the movements that is necessary. So you can translate it into Tamil.
Okay, so I'll just maybe put the whole thing in one gist. Okay. ஷார்ட்டா சொல்லணும்னா நாங்க இப்ப இவ்வளவு நேரமா பேசிட்டு இருந்தது என்னன்னா, குழந்தைங்க பிறந்தப்பல இருந்து ஒரு 15 வயசு வரைக்கும் எவ்வளவு அவங்க விளையாடுறது இம்பார்ட்டன்ட், எவ்வளவு அவங்க வாழ்க்கையில வந்து ஆக்டிவா இருக்கிறது, ஒரு டான்ஸ் ஆடுறதோ இல்ல ஒரு விளையாட்டை ஒன்று சூஸ் பண்ணி விளையாடுறதோ அது எவ்வளவு முக்கியங்கிறது தான் நாங்க இவ்வளவு நேரமா டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருந்தோம். சோ ஃபேக்ட் என்னன்னா, நீங்க வந்து ஒரு 3 வயசு 5 வயசுக்கு உட்பட்ட குழந்தைங்களுக்கு ஃப்ரீயா விளையாட விடணும். அவங்க எதையாச்சும் ஏறுறாங்களா, இறங்குறாங்களா, எதையாச்சும் தள்ளணும்னு நினைக்கிறாங்களா, ஏதாச்சும் இழுக்கணும்னு பண்ணட்டும். ஒரு 2 இது உடையும், பரவாயில்ல. அவங்க கீழே விழுவாங்க, பரவாயில்ல. அவங்க விளையாடணும். அது விளையாடும் போதுதான் அவங்களுக்கு அந்த ஸ்ட்ரென்த் வரும். அது விளையாடும் போதுதான் அவங்களால மீதி 4 பேர் குழந்தைங்களோட விளையாடும் போதுதான் அவங்களுக்கு ஒரு சோசியலா ஒரு எப்படி மூவ் பண்றது, மத்தவங்க கிட்ட எப்படி பழகிறது, ஒரு கோவம் வந்துச்சுன்னா அதை எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்றது, ஒரு பொறாமை வந்துச்சுன்னா அதை எப்படி ஹேண்டில் பண்றது, எல்லாமே அவங்க கத்துப்பாங்க. இது வந்து ஒரு 10 வயசு குழந்தைங்க வரைக்கும் கூட வரும். அதுக்கு மேல வரும்போதுதான் நம்ம வந்து ஒரு பர்டிகுலர் ஸ்போர்ட்டுக்குள்ள போறப்போ என்ன பண்ணணும், அது வந்து ஸ்பெஷலைஸ் பண்ணுமா வேண்டாமா அப்படிங்கறது எல்லாத்தையுமே அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் நம்ம யோசிக்கணுமே தவிர, அதுக்கு முன்னால குழந்தைங்களை விளையாட விடுங்க. படிப்பு படிப்பு படிப்புன்னு சொல்லி அதுல மட்டுமே உட்கார வச்சு அவங்கள வந்து ஒரு விளையாட்டுனா என்னன்னே தெரியாம, இல்ல ஒரு ஆக்டிவா இருக்கிறது என்னன்னு தெரியாம, ஒரு படி ஏறதுக்கு கூட கஷ்டப்படுற அளவுக்கு கொண்டு வந்துடாதீங்க. இப்போதைய குழந்தைங்க நிறைய பேருக்கு அது பார்த்துட்டு இருக்கோம். முதுகு வலி நிறைய குழந்தைங்களுக்கு வருது, ஷோல்டர் பெயின் நிறைய குழந்தைங்களுக்கு வருது. இது எல்லாத்தையுமே நம்ம அவாய்ட் பண்றதுக்கு ஒரே வழி, சின்ன வயசுல இருந்தே பரவாயில்ல ஒரு நாளைக்கு 2 மணி நேரம் 3 மணி நேரம் விளையாடணும் அந்த குழந்தைங்க. இன் ஷார்ட் இதுதான் நாங்க இவ்வளவு நேரமா டிஸ்கஸ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். Over to you.
I did not understand a word of that. Okay. Thank you so much.
I kind of put it in as short a way as possible. So yeah.
Okay, Hindi. Okay.
Please.
I'm going to try. So सिर्फ कोविड ही नहीं, जनरली भी, क्योंकि अब रिसोर्सेस कम है और लोग बहुत ज़्यादा हैं दुनिया में, स्पेस कम है, लोग बच्चों को खेलने की जगह नहीं मिलती, स्कूल्स हैं जहाँ पर खेलने की जगह नहीं है, प्लेग्राउंड्स नहीं है, और जहाँ थे वहाँ पर लोग और बिल्डिंग्स बना रहे ताकि और बच्चे आ सके। हमारे इस डिस्कशन के थ्रू हम आपके सामने ये पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू रखना चाहते हैं कि बच्चों के लिए खेलना, मूव करना बहुत ज़रूरी है। कुछ स्पेसिफिक मूवमेंट पैटर्न्स हैं, एक मूव करने का तरीका जो बच्चे नेचुरली प्राकृतिक रूप से बचपन में डेवलप करते हैं, और वो एब्सोल्युटली उसी एज में ही डेवलप होता है और उस समय होना ज़रूरी है। आप कैचअप नहीं कर सकते 20-25 साल की उम्र में स्किपिंग रोप स्टार्ट अगर आपका बच्चा स्टार्ट कर रहा है, वो आपके लिए अच्छा नहीं है। तो हमारे डिस्कशन में था कि बच्चे जब 3 से 5 साल की उम्र में बहुत एक्टिविटी चाहिए, 3 से 4 घंटे उनको एक्टिविटी चाहिए, दौड़ना, हॉप करना, रस्सी के साथ जंप हॉप, ओ माय गॉड माय हिंदी, बहुत ज़रूरी है। फिर कुछ मूवमेंट पैटर्न्स हैं जिनको मैं ऐसे भी लिस्ट कर दूंगी अपने नेक्स्ट पोस्ट में। इंग्लिश में कहते हैं लंज, स्क्वाट, पुश, पुल। ये एब्सोल्युटली हर इंसान के लिए ज़रूरी है, बट बच्चों के लिए वो मसल मेमोरी में डालना, वो नेचुरली भगवान ने उन्हें ऐसा बनाया है, वो इसी तरह से उनका ग्रोथ होता है। फिर बच्चों के लिए न्यूट्रिशन ज़रूरी है, स्पोर्ट्स ज़रूरी है, मूवमेंट ज़रूरी है। मेरा कहना है एज अ डांस टीचर कि अपने बच्चे को जब वो 4, 5, 6 साल का है, चाहे वो लड़का हो या लड़की हो, जिम्नास्टिक्स सप्ताह में 1 बार एब्सोल्युटली बिल्कुल ज़रूरी है। स्विमिंग 1 से 2 क्लासेस एब्सोल्युटली ज़रूरी है। उसके अलावा फिर आप उसके लिए स्पोर्ट्स चूज़ करें, या तो बच्चे के इंटरेस्ट के हिसाब से, या आपको जो ठीक लग रहा है, या जो भी आपके शहर में अवेलेबल है, ईजिली अवेलेबल है, जिसमें अच्छी कोचिंग है, वहाँ पर उसको डाल दें। लेकिन मूवमेंट में कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ नहीं करें। आपकी जितनी भी एकेडमिक पढ़ाई लिखाई है, चाहे वो मैथ, साइंस हो, बच्चा कैचअप कर लेगा। अगर वो खुश है, फिजिकली एक्टिव है, और फिजिकल एक्टिविटी का दिमाग के ग्रोथ के साथ डायरेक्ट रिश्ता होता है, तो अगर वो सारी चीज़ें जगह पर है, तो बाकी सब चीज़ों की टेंशन लेने की आपको कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है। लाइक आई एम सेइंग दैट एज अ टीचर, मैं 9 साल से 10 साल से बच्चों को पढ़ा रही हूँ। स्पेशलाइजेशन का मतलब हुआ आप एक फील्ड में ज़्यादा नॉलेज गेन कर रहे हैं, तो आप स्पेशलाइज कर सकते हैं क्रिकेट में, फुटबॉल में, डांस में। हमारा कहना है, और डॉक्टर हरिनी हमारे साथ जो है स्पोर्ट्स फिजिशियन, इनका कहना है कि स्पेशलाइजेशन प्यूबर्टी के आसपास, जब बच्चा 12-13 साल का हो, तभी स्टार्ट करे। उसके पहले तक अलग अलग तरह के मूवमेंट्स के लिए एक्सपोजर, उसको अलग अलग तरह के मूवमेंट्स से वाकिफ कराना बहुत ज़रूरी है। नहीं कराने से एक ही मूवमेंट पैटर्न, लाइक आप क्रिकेट के लिए चाहे वो बैटिंग प्रैक्टिस करे, बॉलिंग करे, वो एक ही मूवमेंट पैटर्न को रिपीटेडली करने, लगातार करने से ओवर यूज इंजुरीज हो जाती है। ओवर यूज को हिंदी में क्या बोलते हैं? लाइक किसी चीज को आप बहुत ज्यादा यूज करेंगे तो वो कमजोर हो जाता है, और जिन मसल्स को आप नहीं यूज कर रहे हैं वो तो कमजोर होने ही है। तो ओवरऑल इट्स नॉट गुड फॉर योर किड, वो आपके बच्चे के लिए अच्छा नहीं है। स्पेशलाइजेशन रिजर्व रखें 12 साल की एज के लिए, उसके पहले तक बच्चे को खेलने दें, अलग अलग तरह के एक्सपोजर दें। फ्री प्ले इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। फ्री प्ले का मतलब है, हमारे जमाने में, नॉट दैट वी आर वेरी ओल्ड, पर हमारे ज़माने में जब हम फ्रीली किसी फील्ड में दौड़ रहे होते थे 5-6 बच्चों के साथ, पेड़ पे चढ़ना, कुछ खेल खेल लेना, जहाँ कोई पेरेंट्स या टीचर गाइड नहीं कर रहा होता था, वो बहुत ही ज़रूरी है बच्चों के लिए। स्ट्रेंथ ट्रेनिंग के बारे में हमने बात की। स्ट्रेंथ ट्रेनिंग एज इन या तो बॉडी वेट एक्सरसाइजेस या फिर जिम में जाके एक्सरसाइजेस, वो एंटायरली डिपेंड करता है आपका बच्चा किस स्पोर्ट में है, या फिर अगर किसी स्पोर्ट में नहीं है तो उसके फिजिकल वेलबींग के लिए कराना जरूरी है, तो इट्स अ कंप्लीट यस। स्ट्रेंथ ट्रेनिंग से कोई नुकसान नहीं होता है और वो बच्चों के लिए जरूरी है। जस्ट मेक श्योर, आपका एज अ पेरेंट जिम्मेदारी है ये एंश्योर करना कि बच्चे की कोचिंग अच्छी जगह हो रही हो, जो उसको एक्सरसाइज सिखा रहा है उसको नॉलेज हो। हमने और भी बात की डांस और मेंटल हेल्थ के बीच कितना क्लोज रिलेशनशिप है और लड़कों के लिए कितना जरूरी है डांस करना। हम बचपन से ही बताने लगते हैं लड़कियां ये, लड़का वो, ये जो जेंडर डिफरेंसेस हैं ये डिफरेंसेस नहीं होने चाहिए। लाइक एवरीथिंग, इट्स मूवमेंट इज फॉर एवरीवन, ये डांस करना इज फॉर एवरीवन, बिकॉज अपने आप को डांस से जो मौका मिलता है बच्चों को खुद को एक्सप्रेस करने का, अलग अलग तरह से मूव करने का, 10 बच्चों के साथ इंटरैक्ट करने का, और अगर एक अच्छी टीचर या अच्छा टीचर है उसके साथ इंटरैक्ट करने का, वो एक प्राइसलेस एक्सपीरियंस है। वो ऐसा एक्सपीरियंस है जिसका आप दाम नहीं मोल सकते। इट्स इनवैल्यूएबल। So, इसके साथ I would like to thank Dr. Harini for joining me into this conversation. I know both of us tried with the translation. Yours was, I'm sure, better than mine.
Oh my God, no, you actually went into so much detail. I just said, let your kids play.
Yeah, let your kids play. Let's end with that, and let them dance. Please get them. And I would love to do whatever I can for the children. They can reach out to me anytime. And
same here.
Yes, whether they know me or not, if they want to talk about careers, about should I not, I am happy to be there for the kids. So this goes for kids everywhere. So thank you.
Parents, if you need our guidance as well, please do reach out.
So both me and Dr. Harini are on the same page about this. Thank you for viewing this, and we will be back with another part 2 talking about injuries, rehabilitation, recovery for children and adolescents in sports. So thank you and have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.